Morning, church family. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Charles Gregory. I serve as an elder at the Mariposa Ave Church of Christ. Today we're going to continue our Wednesday night study. We're going to continue walking through Genesis together. We're going to pick it back up in Genesis chapter 31. We're picking it back up where Jacob has decided to head back to where his father and his brother and his mother lives. And Laban isn't happy about how he's left, so Laban is pursuing him. We're going to see how that unfolds together. Let's go to God in prayer. Almighty Father in heaven, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for technology. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to study together even though we're apart. Thank you for us still being able to gather together on Sundays outside. It was quite nice this last Sunday. Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity that we can still meet and greet and encourage one another because we need each other. We need each other's companionship. We need each other's encouragement so that we can stay focused on you and strive to get to heaven together. Please be with us this day as we search your word. Please have our hearts and our minds be receptive to your instruction. And if there's anything that we need to work on, as we go through your word today, please make it clear so that we can be better ambassadors to Christ to the world around us. It's through your blessed Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, guys, if you want to open up with me, Genesis chapter 31. Genesis chapter 31. I'll be reading from the New American Standard Bible. We're going to pick it up in verse 22. Let's pick it up in verse 22. When it was told to Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, then he took his kinsmen with him and pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey, and overtook them in the hill country of Gilead. God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream of the night and said to him, "Be careful that you do not speak to Jacob, either good or bad." Laban caught up with Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen camped in the hill country of Gilead. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, and did not tell me so that I might have sent you away with joy and with songs, with timbrel and with lyre, and did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to speak either good or bad to Jacob.' Now you have indeed gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" I want to pause there for a moment. What was Laban really upset about? Was he upset because Jacob didn't say goodbye? Was that really what he was upset about? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think that was the biggest thing. Was he upset that his daughters were leaving? That his grandchildren were leaving? Maybe a little bit. But again, I don't think that was the biggest thing. You know, Laban, earlier in this chapter, I believe it was, we read last week about how the daughters, when Jacob was saying they wanted to leave, how Leah and Rachel were saying that Laban had sold them and consumed the bride price. My understanding from digging into that a little bit to different commentaries is that there was a tradition at the time that the wives themselves would get part of that dowry, if you will, or I think dowry went the other way. They'd get part of that bride price. And in Laban's case, he didn't share any of it. He took it all. He used it fully. So they really felt, I think what we were seeing expressed there is they really felt like they were being sold like cattle. They were being sold like slaves, if you will. And at that time, really up even through the Roman Empire, in most cultures, women and children had no rights. Dad held all the cards. Dad held all the rights over them, whether he would keep them, whether he would punish them, whether he would sell them into slavery, whatever. Dad had all the rights, which is why the Bible and the way men were told to treat their wives and their children was and is and still in many places today radically different than the way the world around them was to treat people. This was profoundly different than the cultures to which God's word was being introduced. So anyhow, though, but it sounds like Laban broke with tradition, and he didn't share any of the bride price with his daughters. So that leads me to believe, what was he really upset about? Was he really upset that these daughters and kids that he sold like slaves were leaving? I don't think so. I think he was upset because he was losing a lot of wealth. See, he looked just like his sons did at everything that Jacob had as his. He said, that's mine. I want that. And quite honestly, and my thoughts are, and again, my thoughts, you might differ, but my thoughts are in reading this, had it not been for God appearing to him in a dream, he probably would have gone in, sword drawn, to kill Jacob and take back everything Jacob had acquired by force. Had it not been for God intervening, this would have been very different. Thus, God intervened. Very interesting. But he's, of course, talking, as emotional manipulators do, as bullies do. When physical force fails, what is he going to? Well, he's laying the guilt on. He's laying it on thick. He's trying to save face. Because here he's probably said to his men, his family and his men that were going with him, let's go get Jacob. We're taking all this back. We're not letting this wealth train leave us. And now God appears to him in a dream as he's about to go in, as he's probably sitting there, going to sleep, sharpening his swords with the stone. He's getting ready for battle. And God says, no, you're not going to do that. Not to my guy Jacob, you're not. And so now he goes in there and he's probably trying to save some face. So let's read Jacob's reply. In verse 31. Then Jacob replied to Laban. Actually, no, I've got one more thing before we do that. What's up with the false gods? What's up with the false gods? Did you catch that? But why did you steal my gods in verse 30? The God, the one true God, just came to him in a dream and potentially caused him to do a 180-degree turnaround in his actions. Fear is keeping him from attacking Jacob. Fear of the one true God. Yet, he still is looking for his idols. What's wrong with this guy? How come he's not getting it? How come he's not figuring out that, hey, get rid of the false gods. The one true God is talking to you and affecting your life. Turn to him, worship him, be on his side, and he'll take care of you like he's taking care of Jacob. What's keeping Laban from understanding this? And do you know anybody in your life today that is in the same circumstance? Hopefully not you. Laban wasn't able to see clearly. Can we see clearly? How do we help the people in our lives see clearly? As I was thinking about this, I recalled the parable, or not the parable, I'm sorry, the prophecy about parables that Jesus references as to why he spoke in parables, and it was prophesied in Isaiah. Let's look at it real fast. In Matthew chapter 13. New Testament, first book, Matthew chapter 13. Pick it up in verse 10. And this is, so he'd been teaching in parables. I believe he had just given the parable of the sower here, if memory serves me correct. And then in verse 10, and the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? Jesus answered them, "To you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been granted. For whoever has, to him more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even to what he has, he shall be taken away from him." Shall be taken away from him, excuse me. "Therefore I speak to them in parables, because while seeing they do not see, and while hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. In their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is being fulfilled, which says, 'You will keep on hearing, but will not understand. You will keep on seeing, but will not perceive. For the heart of this people has become dull. With their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they would see with their eyes, hear with the ears, and understand with their heart, and return, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes, because they see, and your ears, because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desire to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it." And of course, then Jesus goes on to explain to them the parable of the sower. So, why do I go there? God hasn't changed. God is the same now as he will ever be and as he was. And so while this was specifically a prophecy that Jesus is quoting from Isaiah that was being fulfilled in front of the disciples, there's still some truth in relations and patterns that are being expressed that we see being played out. Laban had become hard-hearted because of his sin. Think about it. God himself is affecting Laban's dreams to the point it is changing his behavior based on fear, and yet that's not enough to make him repent. That's not enough for Laban to go, "Dude, I am totally wrong. I need to humble myself and turn to God so that I too can be saved, so that I too can be blessed." You know, the world operates from the position oftentimes that there's not enough to go around. Oftentimes that we have to take what's ours. We have to get ours at the expense of someone else. It's not the case with God. God has plenty of blessings to go around, if we're just soft-hearted enough to look at his word clearly, to turn to him, to ask forgiveness, to repent, to learn from him. Like Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden." I may misquote this. I might be combining verses here. "All you are weary and heavy laden." Something about learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart. He talks about how they'll find rest for their weary souls. God is the same now as he was then. Jacob is finding rest, is finding peace, is finding salvation. What was keeping Laban from doing that? What keeps people from doing that today? It's a hard-heartedness. It's a choosing not to see. I think what we do about that when we're working with people is we pray. We pray that God will remove the veil from the eyes of the people we interact with. And we pray that God will always help us to see clearly today. Because the moment we stop growing, we've stopped going in the right direction. Let's pick it back up in verse 33. So Laban, 31, I'm sorry. Then Jacob replied to Laban, "Because I was afraid For I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. The one with whom you find your God shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. This could have been all bad. Thankfully, it wasn't. This could have been all bad. Would Laban have killed Rachel? I don't know. Verse 33. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two maids, but he did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the house idols and put them in the camel's saddle, and she sat on them, and Laban felt through all the tent, but did not find them. She said to her father, let not my lord be angry, that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household idols. So what just happened there? The manner of woman is referring to the menstrual cycle. In other words, they didn't have fancy pads or tampons back then. So she's going, Dad, I'd get up, but I'm bleeding. And that was considered very unclean. So he's going, I don't want to touch that. And that allowed her to, and that in the grace of God, to hide these horrible idols that they were keeping. And there are a couple different viewpoints, by the way, on these idols. So people try and offer up that it might have had something to do, like they were passed down as almost as seals, depending on what they were. They could be passed down as seals, and to show that Jacob rightly owned certain things from Laban. I don't buy that. I think that it had to do with her still holding on to the old way of life. She wasn't quite getting it yet, not fully. She understood God was powerful. We see her praising him and in the changing names of her children, but she just hadn't quite gotten rid of all the stink, if you will, from the old life, the filth. We all go through that process when we come to God, and unfortunately it takes some of us longer than others, and some of us don't make it. Some of us settle with sin and stop growing. And that's a scary thing. Verse 36. Now we see Jacob, pent up with 20 years of frustration and resentment, let loose. He might be poking a giant bear, but God was on his side, obviously. But he kind of lets go. He lets go of some aggression that he's probably been swallowing for many, many years. Verse 36, Then Jacob became angry and contended with Laban. And Jacob said to Laban, What is my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? Though you have felt through all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? See it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten the rams of your flocks. That which was torn of beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. You required it of my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been for me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the toil of my hands, so he rendered judgment last night. Praise God. Laban was not fair. Laban was an unfair leader, an unfair dad. He was unfair in his dealings with people. as Christians, as people striving to follow Christ, we have to have a reputation for being even-handed. Yeah, sometimes that means we'll be wronged. Sometimes people will pull the wool over our eyes. We want to be wise as we can, but we have to deal with people the way we would see Jesus interact with them. We can't look like Jesus and have the reputation for taking advantage of people. Why do I say Laban was unfair? When I was reading through Kaufman, he references Hammurabi's code. And clearly we see in Exodus 22:13, if you want to look that up in your own time, Exodus 22:13, we see the same idea there that's also in Hammurabi's code, that shepherds, if they were to bring in the evidence that a beast had been, that a sheep or a goat or whatever had been torn to pieces by a wild beast, that they would not be held accountable for the loss of that animal. That was the tradition. In other words, it was the cost of doing business. They realized that shepherds could only do so much. At some time they had to sleep. I mean, they were out there all the time, with these guys. And so there were provisions, say, if I'm losing sheep by I guess, eating them or something like that, or a bunch of them were stolen, that's on me. I haven't done my job. I haven't protected that flock from marauders, if you will. Or I've been eating off of the boss's flock. Now, maybe he let me do a certain amount, I don't know, but there was a certain amount that the shepherd was responsible for to the owner of the flock. But in both Exodus 22:13 and in Hammurabi's code, the shepherd was not to be held responsible for things that were killed by a wolf or killed by a lion or whatever. Some of that was the cost of doing business. You can't protect every animal all the time. And also, if it got bit and you came in there and, you protected it, well, it still might die. It still might get sick and die, even though you've done your best. You heard the commotion, you woke up, you got out there, you did your best to protect. It still might not make it. So the rule was, both in the Bible and in outside Bible text, the tradition or the rule, the practice, the standard practice was that if the shepherd brought in the evidence that that's what happened, they would not be held liable. Here, we see Laban. We get to see his character a little bit. We see that Laban, just like he didn't follow the standard practice, the tradition with his daughters and their bride price, he didn't follow the tradition with his shepherds, with Jacob. He held Jacob, to a higher level of accountability in regards to loss than God himself established for his people later. Isn't that interesting? So Laban was the kind of guy who manipulated, who took what he could by cheating and by force if he needed to, and he put a heavy weight on people, heavier than they were supposed to have to bear. I think we all know people like that. And it makes me think, here's Laban, here's this dad. What can we learn from this? In Ephesians 6:4, I'll just paraphrase, and you can look it up in your own time later. Ephesians 6:4, we have Paul writing the church in Ephesus, and he's giving instructions again, radically different from the way the world around the church treated people. When these letters were written, Christians were creating massive social change. Slaves had no rights. Children had no rights. Wives had very little rights in most communities. And here we see Paul writing dads saying, do not provoke your children to wrath, but rather instruct them in the way of the Lord. Do we as dads, as bosses, if that's our job, at work and in our home, men, do we have godly, realistic expectations, or do we place expectations on our employees and on our children, on our wives, that are only going to create resentment? We've probably all known men like that, right? That just make people angry because they're unfair, they're unloving, they're manipulative. As Christians, as followers of Christ, we have to strive to not be those kind of individuals. Life is hard enough without us putting expectations on the people that we're supposed to be leading that are too lofty, that are like heavy millstones. Jesus deals with the Pharisees for doing that to the Jewish people. He's like, man, you put these heavy weights, these burdens on people that they're not intended to bear, that you yourselves do not follow. That is exactly the type of guy that Laban seems to be. And we have to be careful that we are not those type of people. Let's keep reading. Then Laban replied to Jacob, "The daughters of my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day to these my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? So now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." Then Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." So they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Now Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me this day." Therefore it was named Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from the other. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me." Side note, did Laban really care about his daughters like this? Or is this literally just a control and saving face thing? Laban said to Jacob, "Behold this heap, and behold the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass by this heap to you for harm, and you will not pass by this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his kinsmen to the meal. And they ate the meal and spent the night on the mountain. Early in the morning Laban arose and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. God saved Jacob yet again. God saved Jacob yet again. And we see a guy with Laban that we've all met before. We see a guy that we've all known, who's manipulative, who steals, who's mean and nasty. I think we've all known at least one person like that in our lives. And we have to strive to not be those kind of men, to not be those kind of bosses, to not be those kind of leaders. Laban was being given opportunities by God to do the right thing. And yes, I'm talking about all this to bring this to life for us so that we can recognize patterns and learn. But yes, the biggest story here is the story of Israel. And in the next chapter, we're going to see Jacob be blessed and be called Israel, no longer to be known as a deceiver, but to be known as the person that strove with God. We're going to read about this wrestling match between one representing God and Jacob. And what a great lesson that is for us. Because we all at times need to hold on and wrestle through things with God. We all at times, perhaps right now for many of us, as we're stuck at home a lot of the time with our loved ones. Maybe by this time the honeymoon's over and we're struggling a little bit. What a great time for introspection. What a great time to look at ourselves and see how we compare to God's Word. What a great time to refine ourselves and choose not to allow any of Laban to be alive in us, but to become more and more like Jesus. What a great time to grow. God is providing us with an opportunity. And God, through all the things that are going on right now, is not only providing us with a great opportunity to grow, but He's making people more receptive to His message of love. He's making people more receptive to His message of salvation. We have an opportunity, church. We have an opportunity to grow inwardly, to grow numerically. I have an opportunity. Let's close with a prayer. Almighty Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you for the word that saves. Thank you for your grace and your love and your mercy. That the world was very fallen. The world is fallen. But you didn't give up. Rather, you had a plan from the beginning to reconcile us through the blood of your Son, Jesus. Thank you, Father. Please help us to be receptive to your word. Please help us to be honest about where we are compared to your word. Help us to turn to you. You will always redeem us. You will always forgive us. You are so graceful and so merciful. Help us to seize the day, carpe diem. Help us to take every opportunity to become more like your Son, so that our lights might shine brighter to our neighbors, to our own families, within our church group, within our work space. Help us, Father, to be a people that are known by our love and that are known because we stand on your statutes no matter what the world around us does. Help us to be an accepting and a loving people that are always ready to hold a hand, to put an arm around a shoulder, to encourage people with the truth of your word. Help us to be a people that grow in the way we walk, in the way we live, in the way we love, and that have numerical growth. A people that cultivates disciples to walk after you. Please keep us safe. Please be with those of our number that are sick. Please help us all to, anybody who's looking to find jobs, help us to stay healthy and well, and help us to do your work in the community. Thank you so much, Father, for your many great gifts. And through your blessed Son's name, the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Please keep praying for our leaders. Please keep reaching out to each other. And I can't wait to be able to either praise God in heaven or praise God Sunday morning with you guys at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. this Sunday. We'll be meeting out back. See you guys then.